Hello, lovely booktubers. I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel, Raina Reads Stuff. Today is February the 14th. Now, it may be known for Valentine's Day, but it's also known as the halfway point of quarter one of Historathon 2025. So I am going to show you what I've read and discuss what I might read in the next half of the quarter. For those of you who don't know, Historathon 2025 is an annual event, and it's not an annual event because last year's was 2024. It's a year-long event that has been organised by Vin at Revenant Reads. There are a number of co-hosts. I will list them below. I am very honoured to be one of them. And we split the year into 4 quarters with the idea of it reading history from a different time period for each of the quarters. Quarter one, January to March, is prehistory to 500 CE. And you can read what you like within that time period. So I think I've had a reasonably good first half of the first quarter. I was thinking about doing things other than Rome this year, and I've done a bit, not as much as I ought to have done. I started off with an hourly history. Now, an hourly history, I get an email each week which tells me the free hourly history books that I can download. So during last year, I downloaded a fair few. The first one I read was about the Great Ice Age. It doesn't give you authors for these books, they're just hourly history. But I found that book quite interesting. I use them in the same way as I use the very short introductions from Oxford University Press, in that they're a great way to just dip your toe into a subject that you know nothing about and see if you want to read any more on it. I've got another few of them that I might have a look at for this quarter, but the first one was the Ice Age. They're designed to be read in an hour, so they're not particularly in depth, but they do give you a taste of the subject. Personally, I prefer my history with people in it, and so I probably won't read that much more about the Ice Age. I know there were people in it, but I like people with names. Next up, I listened to 12 Caesars by Mary Beard. Now, I did think that this might be her take on the 12 Caesars. It wasn't quite that, but it was still a really enjoyable book. She narrates the audiobook, and it's more about images of 12 Caesars. So it's about how the Caesars were depicted and whether or not we can actually say that's what they look like. And it starts off in Roman times with the way sculptures, busts, and sculptures were created, and almost their reuse. It also looks at coins and whether we can be certain that the image on the coin is actually the image of the Caesar. It goes through time, so it deals with the Renaissance art and it deals with Victoriana. I found it really interesting. This would also have fitted the Framed in September event, which is about art. But It's a perfectly acceptable book for Q1 of Historathon, and I very much enjoyed it. Now, this book, Irving Finkel's The First Ghosts, was one of the first books that I bought last year when I finished the Read What You Own challenge. I thought this was fascinating. I have read some Finkel before. I've read a book about the chessmen that were found on an island in Scotland, and I've also read a book called Babylon. This one, Finkel is an expert in cuneiform, and he uses cuneiform tablets to examine what the Mesopotamian beliefs about ghosts were. And he calls it the first ghosts because this is really the first time that you find information about ghosts written down. And the Mesopotamians were really quite serious about it. There, amongst the evidence, there has been found lists of the different types of ghosts, lists of different types of hauntings. It examines tombs. It has a long list of different sorts of exorcisms that you can go and purchase to get rid of your ghosts that are unwanted. Finkel writes with clarity, he writes with knowledge, and I thought this was absolutely fascinating. I will certainly go and find some more of his works to see what I can discover in those. I know very little about Mesopotamians, so I found this really interesting. Right. This very short book about Palmyra. It's by Paul Vane, who is French. It was translated by Teresa Lavender Fagan. And this talks about the site of Palmyra and its decimation by ISIS terrorists. It is dedicated to one of the to the lead archaeologist who was killed by ISIS when Palmyra was destroyed. It's quite a short book, and it's almost like a eulogy to the place. It was published in... When was it published? I don't know, I can't find it. – 2017, I can find it. And the dedication is to Khaled al-Assad, who from 1963 to 2003 was the head of our antiquities for Palmyra. It's a eulogy, really, to the loss of the city. I have also read M.J. Tro's Boudica, The Warrior Queen. I enjoyed this as well. M.J. Tro is quite particular about the fact that his sources are very limited. This was published in 2003. There are really not a lot of archaeological sources to be able to uncover Boudica's life. and the legends around her. The only real sources are Roman historians who, A, were not eyewitnesses, and B, were on the other team. It compares Boudica with a number of other women like Cleopatra, like the woman near Wales, whose name I really can't remember. But it talks about what is believed to have happened to Boudica to set her on her destructive path, and then her battles against the Romans, her sacking of both Colchester and London, and her eventual demise. All through this book, it's very clear that you could really have done with some more actual evidence, but that is what it is. Until someone finds some, then we are stuck with the limited resources that are available. The only other thing I read for the first half of Historathon was this. This was a group read, Sallust, The Complete Works. This included the Catiline conspiracy and the war with Jugurtha, who was a Numidian and came from the part of Africa that is roughly Algeria now. Sallust used first-hand sources to put together those two histories. He also wrote a 5-volume history, but that's been lost to time. Only a few snippets are around now. Those were also included in this book, as was a short biography that was, I thought, very interesting. It was by J.C. Rolfe, and it was called The Life and Works of Sallust. It doesn't actually say when it was published, but I knew nothing about the war with Jugurtha. I didn't even know who Jugurtha was, to be fair, and I didn't know very much about the Catiline conspiracy either. It was written at a time when, well, Sallust was bemoaning the descent of the Roman Empire into debauchery, basically. So it can be a bit holier than thou in places. He does criticize the morals and ethics of his fellow Romans. And yet, in the biography at the end of it, there were certain allegations about Sallust. So he certainly wasn't someone who had a very clean moralistic sheet. So that's my reading for the first half of the quarter. For the second half, I've got quite a lot of options. Now, I am not by any stretch of the imagination saying that I'm going to read all these, but I have this by Professor Alice Roberts, The Celts' Search for a Civilization. Now, it looks to me, because here, there is a bookmark. So it looks to me that I read, let's say, the first 16 pages probably last year. I think I'll start again. because I really don't remember what they were. Then I have this by Paul Cartledge, Alexander the Great, and it sounds quite good. Tom Holland is quoted on the back here, and it says Paul Cartledge is one of those rare scholars who can convey the excitement of both a soaring historical narrative and the careful sifting of sources on which history depends. So that looks quite good. I'm definitely having both of those on my list. But then in the lovely ebook collection, I'm currently part way through a book by L.J. Trafford called Sex and Sexuality in Ancient Rome. So far, so good with this one. I think it's quite interesting. It's dealt with the Roman idea of the role of men and the Roman idea of the role of women. The first chapter was all about insults. That was fun. So I'm looking forward to getting further into that one. And then I also have a book by Barry Strauss that is about the Battle of Actium, the war that made the Roman Empire. And this one is Antony and Cleopatra versus Octavian in a naval battle that, had Antony and Cleopatra won, would have seen a completely different course for the Roman Empire. Having had my interest piqued by Mr. Finkel about Mesopotamia, I have this Ancient Mesopotamia, Portrait of a Dead Civilization. This is by A. Leo Oppenheim. I also have a book called Before the Pharaohs by Julian Maxwell Heath. And this is exploring the archaeology of Stone Age Egypt. I have a book by Samuel Noah Kramer, The Sumerians, Their History, Culture and Character. I don't know how he's going to determine that. And then I have another book on the Celts, Giolal Canestrelli, Celtic Warfare from the 5th century BCE to the 1st century CE. I think that might be about it. So, how's your reading going for Q1 of Historathon? You know, it's not too late to join. So if you fancy reading some non-fiction history this year, join us and see what wonders you can come up with. If you're taking part in Historathon, let me know. Let me know what you're reading. And thank you for watching. I will speak to you very soon.